While writing a code, it is very important to maintain time and space complexity. That's why in this video, we will be talking about 10 tips and tricks that can help you write a better code in Python. So hello everyone and a very warm welcome to WsCube Tech. My name is Ayushi Jain and in this video, we will be talking about 10 tips and tricks that can help you write a better code in Python that can help you save time and space as well. There are several new and different methods which we can adopt instead of using old methods. We'll be discussing all of them in our today's session. So let's get started, guys. So the first thing that we will be working on is the enumerate function. Now first of all, if you want to print a list along with its index, this is how we generally do it. So as soon as I run it, this is how we get the output that we have an index variable, we have a loop. Along with the loop, I am printing the indexes and after every iteration, I am increasing the index by +1. This is one method of doing it and it is taking us 4 lines of code. Instead, what we can do is we can write for index, I in enumerate. Enumerate is a function that allows you to iterate any iterable along with its index. So here we will be using enumerate my list as all the elements are stored in my list, and let's print index and I. So as soon as I run it, you can see it is still giving me the same output. Both the outputs over here are same, that this is our output using 4 lines of code and this is our output using enumerate function. If you want, I can put a space in between as well by writing print, open close the parentheses, and now if I run it, you can see the difference between both of them are doing the same task but in fewer lines. Moving ahead, let's talk about our second tip here, that is using generators to save memory. For this, I will take a list over here, naming it as my list. In my list, I am creating a list comprehension method over here where I am writing I for I in range 1, 90,000 and print sum of my list. As soon as I run it, this is how the output look like. Now let's check how much memory this list comprehension method is taking for us. For that, I will be importing sys. Let's use one function, that is system dot get size of. Let's store it in a variable as well so that we can find the size. Let's write my list over here, and as soon as I print it, you can see the values over here. These values are in bytes. So if you want, I can add bytes over here as well, but this value is in bytes. This value that I have received is in bytes. Now let's use a generator over here. For that, I'll be taking a variable called as generator. For that, I'll be taking a variable called as g. Inside, I will be writing for and I for I in range 1, 90,000, print sum. Let's just check the sum of g, and let's also print sys dot get size of g. And now as soon as I run it, you will notice that both the outputs are similar, but it is taking only 200 bytes. That means this generator is taking a very much less memory. You can see how huge the difference is. One is 8,984 while the other one is only 200 bytes. So that is why you can use generators if you are working on large set of list. Moving ahead, let's talk about our tip number 3, that is list comprehension method. Now previously we have seen in our last tip that how list comprehension works. I will now explain you that how we can actually use list comprehension. So let me just comment it, and now as soon as I run this code, you will now notice that in the new list, this my list has got appended. All the elements of my list is now appended in new list. But again, how many lines of code it is taking is 4 lines of code. Instead, it can be done in just 2 lines. How you can do it is, let's say, I'll call it new list 1 is equals to I for I in, because we want all the elements of my list to get appended into new list 1. That's why we will be using my list over here. And let's print the new list 1. And as soon as I run it, you will now notice that we are getting the same output for both the list, that is new list and new list 1, and it is taking us only 2 lines of code while the other one is taking us the 4 lines, while the other method is taking us the 4 lines of code. So this is how you can use list comprehension method. Another very amazing thing about the list comprehension method is that suppose I want to only append the numbers which are greater or which are divisible by 2. For example, if I use if condition over here, that if I when divided by 2, if it gives the remainder 0, in that condition append. Okay. Again, you can see the lines of code is increased by 1, while here what we can do, here just we need to add if I when divided by 2 gives the remainder 0. So what we have done is that only append I to the new list 1 if when divided by 2 it gives the remainder 0. When any element from this list when divided by 2 gives the remainder 0, so as soon as I'll run it, in both of them we will get the same output. But again, as you can see, it's taking 5 lines of code over here, but while in this method it is taking only 2 lines of code. This is called as list comprehension method. Let's move ahead and talk about our fourth tip, that is Lambda function. Now how does this Lambda function work is, suppose we have created a function like this where we need to just add 2 numbers. Again, now it is taking 3 lines of code. Also we have, because we have created a function over here, it is in there in our memory. Here what we can do is, suppose if we do not want to use it a lot of times, in that case we can use a Lambda function, that is our anonymous function in Python. How to use Lambda function is very simple. So as of now, if I run this code, the output is 7 because I have created a function which returns the addition of a plus b, and in a and b I have passed 3, 4. That's why it's adding both the numbers. In Lambda function, what you can do is you can write x is equals to lambda a comma b, where what we need to do, we need to add a plus b. Now let's print x, and in here I'll pass a comma b value, that is 3, 4, and as soon as I'll run it, I will still get the same output. And here we have created an anonymous function. It does not have any name. Its name is just lambda, that is an anonymous function, and a and b are the parameters over here. Now if you want, you can use it with different values as well, just like how we can use this again and again, for example by writing add and 6, 7. Here also we can use the same method by writing print x 6, 7, and if I run it, it is working the same way for us, that in both the cases it is giving us 7 and 13, and here also we have 7 and 13. But in this case what has happened, we have not created a function in the memory, but it is just anonymous, which is over here in the code, which has been created at the runtime only. So this is the use of Lambda function. Remember one thing about the Lambda function, that you cannot use multiple arithmetic operations over here. Only one arithmetic operation can be performed, while you can take any number of arguments and parameters, but you cannot perform multiple arithmetic operations. Let's move ahead and talk about our next tip, that is zip function. Now what is zip function? Zip function allows us to iterate 2 values parallelly. For example, if I discomment it, and here if I write for I in, and because there are 2 variables, so I comma j in zip list1 comma list2 colon print I comma j, and now as soon as I'll run it, you will now notice that both of them are iterated parallelly. And suppose if you want to add a delimiter in between, you can add maybe a hyphen in double quotations. So again if I run it, this is how the output looks like, that name is John, age is 24, gender is male. So suppose if you have different lists and you want to iterate them parallelly, in that case you can use the zip function. Moving ahead, let's talk about our next step, that is using sets to sort the unique values. So right now we have a list. If I'll print this list right now, so let me just remove the comment from here. So if I print this my list right now and run it, this is how the output looks like, that we have all the elements over here. But what if I want to sort all the values, also remove the duplicate values? So as soon as I run it, this is how the output looks like. Now to sort it, what we need to do is we need to write print sorted my list. As soon as I run it, it has now been sorted. But what I need to also do is I need to create a set over here. But what I need to also do is, you can see there are duplicate values like 20, 20, 24, 24, 33, 33. So there are some duplicate values and I want to remove these duplicate values. In order to remove them, all you need to do is, let's store it in a variable, maybe call it as s, print set of s as soon as I'll run it, you will now notice that all the duplicate values have been removed. But now it is not sorted. To sort it, first of all, let's convert it into a list by writing list over here. And because it is a sorted list, that's why we will also add sorted. And now if I run it, this is how the output looks like. So you can directly perform this on my list. You do not need to write this sorted thing. You can directly write my list over here. And by performing three functions together, that means what we have done over here is, first we have removed all the duplicate values. Second, what we have done is we have converted it into a list. Third, we have sorted it as well. So we can apply 3 functions all together on my list, and one by one it will apply all the functions. For example, first it will go with set, that first it will remove all the duplicate values, then it will get converted into a list, and lastly it will get sorted. Let's move ahead and talk about our 7th tip here. So our 7th tip is using f string to format string. For example, if I want to write print my name is comma name and my age is comma age, which is in capital H. Okay. As soon as I run it, this is how the output looks like. But what we have to do is we have to use a comma over here again and again. Instead, what you can do is you can use f string. For that, all you need to do is write print f, and in the double quotations you can write my name is, and wherever you think there is a variable, there you can use curly braces and inside write name, and my age is capital AGE age. Now as soon as I run it, you will now notice that I will still get the same output, but f string is much more better because we do not have to separate it again and again with the comma. All you can do is you can put the variables inside the curly brackets. Let's move ahead and talk about our tip number 8, which is swapping the variables and declaring multiple variables. So if I right now remove the comment from here, what is the motive of this code is to swap the variables. For example, the value of A is 24, the value of B is 42, and if I print A and B, it should give me the output like this, that is 24 and 42. But because I want to swap it, I have stored it in a temporary variable. Then I have converted A is equals to B and B will be equal to temporary. In that way, both the variables will be swapped. But as you can see, it is taking a lot of lines of code. So instead, what we can do is, instead of doing this method, we can write over here only. I'm going to write that A comma B is equals to B comma A. And now if I print A comma B and if I run it, you will notice that I will be getting the same output over here. Now this is the better way to swap the variables instead of using 4 extra lines of code where we have to store one variable into temporary, then make A is equals to B and then B is equals to temporary. So instead of doing all that process, you can write it in one line only by swapping it like this. Similarly, if you are declaring variables in multiple lines like this, for example, if I'll write over here C is equals to 88, it's taking me 3 lines of code. Instead, what you can do is write A comma B comma C is equals to 24 comma 42 comma 88. So because we have taken A, B, C already, instead let's take X, Y, Z. So X comma Y comma Z is equals to 24, 42 and 88, and it will still do the same work. For example, if I'll try to print all 3 of them by writing print A comma B comma C and print X comma Y comma Z. As soon as I'll run it, for both of them I'll be getting the same output. So instead of declaring the variables in multiple lines, what you can do is you can do it in one line only by creating multiple variables comma separately. Let's move ahead and talk about our next step over here, that is multiple checks in if statement. Now what is multiple checks in if statement is, for example, I have created a variable called as Avenger here. If Avenger is equals to Hulk, Avenger is equals to Vision and Avenger is equals to Iron Man, then print assemble, else print no Avenger found. So if I just want to check that if Avenger is present in these 3 values, that means whatever value is stored in this Avenger, if it's present, if it's equal to Hulk, Vision or Iron Man, then only it will print assemble. So it's taking me what? It's taking me 4 lines of code. So here basically what we have done is we have used multiple checks for Avenger, that is we are writing or and or again and again. Instead what we can do is we can use a list over here by writing if Avenger in, and let's create a list of all these three elements, that is Hulk, comma, Vision, comma, Iron Man, and lastly in this condition print assemble, else print no Avenger found. In this way, we do not have to put multiple checks in this if statement. Instead, what we can do is we can use a list over here instead of putting or, and or. Let's move ahead and talk about our last step over here, that is using shorthand ifelse statement. Shorthand ifelse statement is very simple and very effective statement where we can write 4 lines of code in just one line. For example, here we have this score is greater than 50, print high score, else print low score. So as soon as I run it, this gives me high score. This is how we generally write the conditional statement. Instead, what we can do is we can write it in one line only by writing print high score if score is greater than 50, else print low score. And now if I run this, you will now notice that I will still get the same output over here but in just one line of code. So I have replaced these 4 lines of code to just one line of code, which is more effective and it saves more time for us. So all these methods that we have discussed over here will help you save your time and space and will help you maintain your time and space complexity in the code. So I hope guys that you have no doubts and no questions in all the tips and tricks that we have learned today. I hope you liked the video. If you like this video, do like, share and subscribe, and for more such content, stay tuned guys. Thank you.